Hello, my name is Jametta, and I had the honor of attending LMI's workshop, Living from the Heart. Before that workshop, I was interviewed, and I was told to just share a very difficult part of my journey and my story, and that it would be written from heaven's perspective. So that rewriting of that story literally changed my perspective of every single thing and every encounter that I have with any person here on earth. One of the most painful experiences that I shared was I had a horrifying accident where my dear friend was run over by a boat that I was driving. His limb was almost completely severed. They got him in an ambulance, rushed him off, and then, I just started shaking. I could hardly breathe, hardly move, and got my way home, and my folks tried to comfort me, and I just said, I just need to go to church. I need to go to church. So I went to church the next morning. They took me, and the pastor had this entire sermon about when bad things happen, it shows that God doesn't love you anymore, that you've lost your salvation. And I was shocked. My parents were shocked, and they literally dragged me out of that service before the pastor even finished his sermon. And I started going down a pretty dark path during the time of high school, and it was a horrifying time. It was 2.5 years later that I was around people that acknowledged that God does love you and that you have not lost your salvation. And I returned. And so what a relief. All of a sudden I am loved, So I reconnected with the Lord and his love for me. About 5-6 months later, this pastor came and actually asked forgiveness for how he had hurt me. And he was leaving the country, and personally I did forgive him, but I was really glad he wasn't going to be around because it was still pretty painful. And then about 30 years later, he actually contacted me. And when they rewrote my story, it gave me another perspective of the compassion that I had for him. And as I look at his life, it is completely changed. And what I understood after reading that story is his pain and my pain were so intertwined and interconnected. But when forgiveness happened, it released forgiveness in his life, it released forgiveness in my life, and it began a whole nother story in heaven of his redemption, my redemption, and the threads of the tapestry of heaven just began to change, and life began to grow out of that pain and out of that redemption. That all my prayers has affected him and his ministry, and his prayers for me has affected mine. And it was so encouraging to know that, gosh, that 30 years wasn't wasted, that God has redeemed and done so much, that the glory of his ministry and the glory of what God's doing in my life has been intertwined. So I'm just so grateful for that story because it changed how I view what goes on with every connection that I make.